Hello everyone, welcome to Newsmaker Live with me, Kendall Burton. Our guest this evening, the new leader of the opposition, Dr. Gail Rigobert. Thank you very much for being with us. I want to start by congratulating you, first of all, on your new appointment. And thank you for joining us and spending the next 90 minutes with us.
Thank you, Kendall, for having me. Let me emphasize that my appointment takes effect on the 1st of February.
That is correct. How do you feel about the appointment?
I must confess that there is a little discomfort, but with that also comes tremendous excitement, because I understand all too well the burden of responsibility to speak on behalf not only of the Flabo supporters who elected the 6 of us into the House, but also the many citizens who expect us to serve as an effective check and balance on the happenings in government.
But it didn't come as a complete surprise, did it?
It didn't, insofar as after the last convention in July of last year, that constitutionally the understanding is that one of the deputies would have to assume that role, and given that I'm the only one who's elected, that naturally that would fall to me. However, there was no haste, and we thought that the Honourable Stephenson King had served us for a long time, and you know he's a formidable politician in his own right, and that there was no rush to implement the Constitution or the tenets of the Constitution.
But your name had been, even before the convention,
Oh, really?
been put forward as a possible candidate for the position.
Well,
you've been quoted in some quarters as saying that you weren't interested.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I've always been very mindful that a lot of this is on-the-job training, and one should never rush into positions. I belong to a party that recognizes talent, especially youthful talent. And at the convention, Spider Leonard Montoute and I were nominated as deputy political leaders, uncontested. So naturally we assumed that position on July 28th when the elections would have been held. And as I said previously, given that our political leader in the person of Alan Chasney is not an elected member, it therefore meant that I would, according to the Constitution, expect to fill the role of leader of the opposition. But there's an understanding among my peers that given Mr. King had just lost to Mr. Alan Chasney, there was no immediate need or concern to have him replaced as leader of the opposition. And I respected that and understood that, absolutely.
But what qualifies you for the position, and what qualities do you bring to it that will allow you to handle the challenges that you alluded to earlier?
Let me be very clear. I have come to appreciate that, notwithstanding my academic exposure, that politics is really about on-the-job training. No number of textbooks can adequately prepare you for that role, though naturally you bring to the table some understanding of how the world works and some core competencies that you would have acquired during your academic sojourn.
Now, there's been expressed some concerns about the possible fallout of the process leading to your assuming the position, this new position as leader of the opposition. Are you at all concerned about the impact it's going to have on your relationship with your fellow party members as well as the other parliamentarians?
I have no immediate reason to be concerned about the relationship among my peers, especially insofar as we have to appreciate that we went according to the letter of the party's constitution. And I must say, I'm not convinced, or I'm not yet satisfied, that the party collectively has taken the time to congratulate itself for, one, crafting a party constitution in the first instance, and secondly, implementing it. And you will appreciate that as we move from the practices of established through convention and historical tradition into applying a constitution and adhering to the core tenets of that constitution, that there will be some static. There will be a period of adjustment. And I think what we have seen recently is really the manifestation of that adjustment where, you know, there has to be a realignment of emotions, sentiments, and the scientific application of the Constitution.
Now, the party has been accused, for lack of a better word for it, engaging in a lot of petty squabbles. There's been suggestions of division within the party, all of which has been denied by the political leader as well as the chairman of the party. And squabbles are nothing unique to politics.
I'm happy you recognize that.
The United Workers' Party over in Barbados, we've heard just this month about some infighting within the BLP between Owen Arthur and Mia Motley. There's the case of the English Labour Party between 79 and 82. Do you see it, or should I rephrase that question and say, is there anything healthy about that sort of dynamic?
Let me say, to the extent that this is a democratic and transparent party, and that we allow for free expression and the airing of various perspectives, that is healthy. The expressions or utterances in the public cause some discomfort, because naturally there are things that really should be for your membership only to know and should not be discussed in public and on the media. But I am satisfied that the party constitution allows for the convening of meetings at various levels involving the membership of the party to address internal matters. And that is what we have done over the last couple of weeks. It is unfortunate that some of our members have taken to the media to air the grievances, and I would really encourage that persons guilty of that should stop and should refer to the Constitution, because within the Constitution, within our party, there are mechanisms available to us to address misunderstandings.
So is the case that people are not familiar with the contents of the Constitution?
I think that it's a relatively young Constitution. It's the 1998 edition. And I think convention had taken such a strong hold, had been so deeply entrenched in the party versus the application of the Constitution per se, that it will take some longer than others to understand and appreciate that we have a Constitution that prescribes the behavior of party members, and that we should trust the Constitution is adequate to address not just our behavior when all is well, but also to address discord, misunderstandings, disagreements, etc.
Yeah. But what you're saying now suggests that perhaps the chairman and the political leader are not quite on the button when they describe the United Workers' Party as a united and strong organization, and that there is in fact division, and that division is manifesting itself by members of the party coming out and addressing issues very publicly that really ought, as you said, be dealt with internally.
Colonel, I do beg to differ. I am not sure that public utterances of disagreement necessarily amount to divisiveness or division. I'm not convinced of that at all. It is just that certain party members have chosen to air their grievances publicly. But that, to my mind, does not at all amount to there being the kind of divisiveness that has been alluded to in various quarters.
And that is your assessment. The public holds a totally different view, apparently. And there are questions, and questions have been asked quite rightly, about the suitability or the ability of the United Workers' Party to re-enter into government.
And just a short historical walk will remind us that the United Workers' Party has had moments of turbulence, and we have landed safely, and we have regained the leadership of this country, the reins of government. And it's just a cycle and the evolution of any organization. Some organizations handle it better than others. Certain members more acutely subscribe to the letter of the Constitution that guides their behavior. So this is not at all unique to the United Workers' Party. It is understandable that in the aftermath of a loss, that naturally there will be some disagreement, there will be some misalignment, some incongruence, but that does not at all amount to a fracture in the party. I am confident that the dust will settle, that emotions will subside, and that we, the good members of the United Workers' Party, will embrace the core tenets of unity and work in progress.
If we may continue along that historic path that you started us off on, let's go back. The United Workers' Party at one point held office for up to about 15 years, and except for a 2.5-year break, if you want to call it that, has been in power since 1964. But come 1997, you took a serious thrashing at the polls, and some analysts suggest that the party has never fully recovered from that. Do you differ from on that as well?
Yes, I do beg to differ insofar as every organization goes through cycles. In fact, it's the law of the universe, that there are ebbs and flows, that there are peaks and troughs. And the United Workers' Party, like any other given political organization or institution, has had its moments of reconsideration, realignment, pulling back, introspection. And these sentiments of disagreement or open discourse and questioning often happen just when an institution is about to experience a new bloom. So I take all that has been happening publicly to indicate that there's a new bloom, and that there's some shedding, that there's some pruning, and that with some healthy application of manure, you'll see the United Workers' Party regain the reins of leadership of this country again.
Speaking of shedding and pruning, are we going to see more shedding and pruning of other members of the United Workers' Party?
Whether voluntarily or involuntarily.
Answer like a true politician. The group calling itself the Flabo Activists Call to Service of Facts is a new group that has emerged following this apparent split in the party. And I use the term loosely, out of concern for what has happened or been happening with the United Workers' Party. Have you, or do you think the political leader given any credence or consideration or legitimacy to this organization or this grouping?
Let me say that the United Workers' Party, with 6 members in the House, is more concerned with ensuring that the government of the day delivers on its manifesto promises. This country is burdened with economic problems. We've just had a Christmas Eve trough which has wreaked havoc on many families and communities, the application of VAT on medication. These are the burning issues of the day, and we do not allow ourselves to become distracted by any the emergence of any entities that claim to be working in the best interest of the party. I think that
you say
our
claim,
concern...
but are they members of the party?
I don't know who the membership is. I don't know what the facts entail. I don't know who comprises the facts at all. I think that these are unnecessary distractions, and that we should remain focused on providing the kind of opposition that people expect us to do, and alongside that, in parallel, to strengthen, restructure the party, and to be ready when that day comes, when the election is called, to regain the reins of leadership of this country.
How effectively can you do that if your own house is in disarray?
Our house is not in disarray. What you have witnessed is public utterances of disagreement, and not to the extent that I should be at all concerned that this will weaken the party and create significant doubt in anybody's mind that we are indeed a formidable opposition and the feasible alternative to the sitting government.
Now, speaking of formidable opposition, Stephenson King, the opposition leader who you will be replacing come February, has publicly stated that he himself is not sure of why events took the turn that they did. I would like to give you the opportunity to explain to whatever degree you can some of the reasons for things getting to the point that they got.
Let me prefix this by saying that one of the core values that we developed over the last couple months, immediately after the convention in July, we had a workshop to define the mission, the values, and the vision of our beloved party. And one of the values is confidentiality. And I, as a party member and as deputy political leader, I hold steadfastly to that value. And I would hesitate to discuss the intimacy of the issues that pertain to the United Workers' Party. Notwithstanding, it is understandable that there will be multiple readings of what has just happened. We owe it to our membership in the first instance to explain to them the course of events that resulted in my sitting here with you today. I imagine you've invited me because as of the 1st of February, I'll be the new leader of the opposition. And you're right to say that the events were unfortunate. And it's a word that I've used a lot in the past couple of days. Rather unfortunate. But I would really resist the temptation to discuss this publicly. I, of all persons, should uphold our value of confidentiality.
Yeah, but others aren't being so mum.
Well, I would like them, therefore, to refer to the Constitution. As
we speak, Mr. King is engaged in meetings in his constituency, a series of meetings. Is he doing that with the blessing of the United Workers' Party? Because a letter from the political leader to Mr. King, one of the concerns was that he was doing or undertaking activities and initiatives without the party's blessings or consent.
Oh, Mr. King, like any other MP, is well within his right to host constituency meetings or town hall meetings. In fact, we encourage that. And if you allow me, I am due to hold one on Saturday at 6 o'clock in Micoud at the Micoud Secondary School, and the following week in Monrepo. So we encourage our MPs to do that, to touch base with your supporters, to enlighten them, to discuss the issues that beset them in their respective communities and this beautiful island of ours.
So the matter of timing is not an issue for you?
Oh, no. From last year, we were very clear that as of 2014, we would have a schedule of town hall meetings and constituency conferences. And mine is on Saturday. I guess his begins this weekend as well. So he's quite on the ball with that.
Okay. Your guest speaker at the last convention in July, Mr. Claudius Preville, outlined a number of directions or guidelines that he would like to see the United Workers' Party adopt to get the party on a firm footing to deal with all the internal issues and put it in a better position to regain the governance of the country. How satisfied are you at this point that you have implemented those suggestions or recommendations?
Well, it's shy of 7 months, is it? And so far we have had a very intense workshop at which we defined the mission, the values, and the vision of our party. We have also engaged in some capacity building at the constituency level. We have exposed our membership. Don't expect me to tell you everything we've done because the others must not know what we're doing. But I'll tell you the things that, of course, are public knowledge. But certainly we have engaged our constituency groups in a more active way. Interestingly, there are many people who are joining the party. In fact, we're due to have a meeting to validate or accept some of those who've applied for membership of the party in the coming days. So that's encouraging. Clearly we're doing something right. I think in the last couple months we have indicated to the public that we are gearing up for what ultimately political organizations are set up to do, i.e. to govern. And while in opposition, what you do is to prepare your political muscle and to ensure that you are well prepared to assume that role. So insofar as we have undertaken some very structural changes, we have also undertaken an active and maybe even aggressive recruitment drive. I think the traditional view of the United Workers' Party is quickly being debunked, and so it's being seen as the young, vibrant, thinking, feasible alternative to what currently exists.
Let's talk about youthfulness and vibrance. Immediately after, well, your last press conference, the political leader introduced you as the first female leader of the opposition, as well as the youngest, if not one of the youngest.
Oh dear.
And spoke about the importance of both youth and women's issues to the party. I want you rather to speak to those issues regarding women and youth that are dearest to you or most important to you.
Of primary concern is the plight of single mothers. I have always endeavored to champion the cause of single mothers. Perhaps it is easy for us to not notice the daily struggle of single mothers having to raise kids largely on their own with very meager resources in most instances. And I'm not sure that as a society we have made adequate accommodation for especially young single mothers, young women who perhaps planned or unplanned may have had kids and in some instances want to pursue an education. How do you balance childcare and pursuing tertiary education? And that has been a particular concern of mine. Also, the notion of second chances. Our society sometimes is quick to label, and I'm happy to see that there is a change in that regard compared to a couple of years ago. But some of these young women need second chances, and we need to institute the right policies to ensure that they can get that second chance. With respect to the youth, I think that there is still too much of a heavy emphasis on the traditional subject areas. I would really like to see greater investment in the area of technical and vocational subjects, and to encourage young people to go in that direction. We are a very talented society. Our youth, as you know from the various programs that they undertake, they're very talented in music, in art, in dance, in fashion, and of course there are those who are academically inclined, and even that I use with some reservation, because all undertakings require some intellectual input. So we need to create avenues for those who wish to move away from or pursue what we call non-traditional subject areas, and to ensure that there's adequate institutional arrangement for that to happen.
I want to take a short break. As you're talking, I'm monitoring the social media, and I have a couple of questions being thrown at you here. We have a question from Jacqueline, who is concerned about, or wants to know, is curious rather, about your stance on a number of issues. There's a long list here.
Oh dear.
The museum, a National Art Gallery, a theater in the honor of our Nobel laureate, a St. Lucia history book for local schools, the National Heroes Museum or Monument for the Maroons, the eviction of the electorate residents, the rape of the national landmarks. Where do you want to start?
Do we take this before the break or after the break?
No, we'll take those now.
Take those now, okay.
Wherever you want to start.
Let me say that right on the heels of Nobel laureate week, and we're still in January, so Nobel laureate month.
Right.
It's interesting the amount of energy that goes into celebrating Nobel laureate month, and we honor Derek Walcott and Sir Arthur Lewis. And I want to see the transference of that energy into policies that will ensure that in the next generation we can produce another Derek Walcott and another Arthur Lewis. And that is so necessary, but I'm not sure that the current curriculum, for example, the formal curriculum in schools, allows for expression, artistic expression, Again, we seem to have to subscribe to a very fixed traditional curriculum. And I'm not sure how much creative thinking is facilitated within the current pedagogic arrangements in schools. So I would like to see a deliberate attempt to identify, encourage, harness, that pool of talent so that the next generation can boast of their own Derek Walcott and Sir Arthur Lewis. That's one. I have often felt that one of the things we need to reintroduce in schools is the teaching of civics. What does it mean to be a good citizen? What is required of me as a good citizen? Do I understand how I differ from a Vincentian or Barbadian? What makes me uniquely St. Lucian? How do I interact with my physical environment? How do I hurt the environment? And I remember, for example, the late Professor Rex Nettleford used to say that poor people damage the environment not consciously or deliberately, but simply to eke out a living. So there needs to be some deliberate education, sensitization, so that our interaction with the physical environment is more responsible. Because we need to understand that we have a responsibility to the next generation, that at least they have access to the same physical resources. At a minimum, they have access to the same physical resources that this generation has access to. That somehow needs to be inculcated into our people. So that then will determine how we deal with Frigate Islands. It will determine whether or not we litter the streets. It will determine how we view Rat Island or Maria Island. So these things somehow need to find their way into the education system. Now, I know I have made a reference to the education system a lot. It is where our kids spend most of their day. It is the area that absorbs, is it 1/3 usually of our budget, but certainly a large chunk. And so you want to see a return on investment as well. So in producing this holistic citizen, it requires that you understand and obey the rule of law, that you understand what is required of you as a citizen, that you have a responsibility to future generations, and that in your current existence, in your present existence, that you maximize the opportunities available to you.
Okay, I have another question here for you.
Oh dear.
It says, Gail give and the others give Stephenson King stick for accepting the SUV that the government gave to the opposition leader. I want to know whether she will accept it now that she's in the post.
I have not had the time to deliberate on those nitty-gritties. But I think, as I understand it, the vehicle is really owned by the Parliament office and is assigned to the leader of the opposition office. As to how one interprets that or what use the vehicle is put into, I guess, is subjective. But certainly my own car works really, really well. I can traverse the entire island, get there safely and back. So the car is the least of my concerns right now.
Okay, I hope that answers Frank's question. At this point, we're due for a break. We'll take that break. When we come back, we'll continue our conversation with Dr. Gail Rigobert. We'll be right back.